The next question says, determine if the function is even, odd, or neither. So an even function is going to have y-axis symmetry. An odd function is going to have origin symmetry. We have a symbolic way that we can represent this, and that is that f of negative x equals f of x. So this is a symbolic representation of what y-axis symmetry would be. The x values are opposites. The x values are opposites, but the y values are equal to each other. So if we think about that in picture form, here we would have an x, opposite of that x, and the two y values being equal to each other. So that would be y-axis symmetry. That's a mirror image over the y-axis. For origin symmetry, symbolic representation would be f of negative x equals negative f of x. So this is where the x values are opposite, negative x and x. The y values are also opposite, one positive, one negative. So this would give you a mirror image over the origin. So what I'm going to do to determine if this function here is f of x equals x to the 13th minus x cubed, I'm going to determine whether this is even or odd based on whether it matches these properties that I've written out, these symbolic representations of y-axis and origin symmetry. If you look at both of them have the symbols f of negative x in them. So that's the calculation that I'm going to do. I'm going to calculate f of negative x. Everywhere I see an x, I change it to negative x. So if I substitute a negative x in, I get negative x to the 13th minus negative x to the 3rd. To simplify, this would be negative x to the 13th and plus x to the 3rd. So that's because negative x to the 13th has an odd number of negatives, so that's going to still be negative. And negative x to the 3rd has an odd number of negatives, so that will still be negative. And because of this other negative, negative and negative become a positive. So once I do that calculation, what I'm trying to figure out is if that calculation equals the same as the original function or the opposite of the original function. So this would be the same. Y-axis symmetry would be the same as the original function. Origin symmetry would be the opposite. So my original function, remember, is x to the 13th minus x to the 3rd, and these are definitely not the same. And we can see that the term x to the 13th, one has a positive, one has a negative, and the x to the 3rd term, one has a positive and one has a negative, so they are the opposite. So because our calculation of f of negative x came out to be the opposite of the original function, we're going to categorize this as an odd function.